Okay, good. So we'll be recording the podcast on Spreaker and recording the call here this evening, and we'll have that. In fact, the Spreaker thing usually posts within about 10 minutes after the call is over. So what we've been pushing and tracking on has been how to get to the next level of what God has for us. That's always been the hidden mystery, How do you go from point A to point B when there's no road and there's certainly no roadmap? And so I think all of us have understood that type of life where there really has been no roadmap. You've had to ferret out the leading of the Lord that He's had for you individually, which could be completely different than anyone else, may have the same destination, but the paths all have their own unique way, tailored just for each of us, to bring us to the point that we would be able to make the changes that we have to make, or that have to be made within us. So one of the things that we were talking about this week, and here again, Lord, pray over this word this evening. We were talking about this today. Lord, we're not going to back into the kingdom through the rationing of our mind. We're not going to figure this out. We know that from the level of the soul and the level that we've walked on, our entire lives, this is not how we move forward in God. It happens because, and here again I'm talking to the choir, all of you know this, it happens because something comes alive within you, and the change and the magic happens there. It doesn't happen because you happen to see with your eye some auras, angels, or whatever. Whatever we've seen. It's, each of us have had our experiences, and they continue. And they continue oftentimes in correlation to the rising of your vibration, because the higher up you go in the Father's kingdom, the more you become sensitive and aware of everything about you. You can't turn it on and turn it off. You can't come up higher and move deeper into an unfolding within you that's happening, but turn off one part of it and say, well, I don't really need to be aware of that over there. And because it just all comes with the package. It's a package deal. You come into that plane of awareness, and it encompasses everything of the Father's kingdom. And then it gets interesting as He begins to bring you through that which He wants you exposed to recondition your thinking. I mean, that was one of the first words that came many, many years ago. He says, I need you to let go of everything. And it took us a long time to really understand how thorough he meant that to be. It wasn't, well, we just let go, and as if it just happens like that. Because you're dealing with a lifetime. You're dealing with paradigms. There's a word that we brought years ago called tracks of consciousness. And you're dealing with all of these tracks, all of these things that define how you see and how you register what you see. And so we're in this shift right now at different stages of coming out of seeing with our eyes, seeing with our mind, perceiving. I mean, some of the most difficult people to reach are the people that are really, really smart. And they know everything. I know it. Before you even say it, I already know what you're talking about. Oh my God. And it becomes so difficult to reach them. Because what God is doing by the Spirit is out of our frame of reference. I mean, we don't know the deep things of God. We're coming into them. We're learning them. But it's happening within us as God brings us into what I've called an unwrapping. He's unwrapping us. And as the veils are removed, you could even, I've equated that to the seals being taken off the book in the book of Revelation. God's taking the seals off of us. And we don't realize, I mean, we do to a degree, but how deep we have been saddled with the consciousness of humanity and mankind. And one of the early words that the Lord brought was, break your bonds with humanity. Because you are not human. You are not after the pattern of what, of the earth and the world. You are my sons and my daughters. You've been sent for a purpose, to become, to change, to manifest, to bring in the kingdom. And so we've been working on this for years. Say, okay, Lord, you know what? Let's talk turkey here. We're not going to talk theory. You say bring in the kingdom. What does that mean? And so we've gone through the process of the Lord just beginning to really break it down, and explain, okay, this is what it means to bring in the kingdom. This is what it means when the kingdom is within you. This is what it means when I say that I'm in you, you are in me, and everything of my kingdom is a part of you. Yeah, it's like a giant matrix that covers the earth. And I've said this before, that the minutest breakthrough that you have affects the kingdom of God. And I'm not trying to sell anybody anything here. If you just have to seek the Lord. Lord, show me that. Because we don't, I don't want to keep saying we don't. We do understand to a degree, and we're coming into a deeper understanding of how interconnected we are. I am to you, you are to me. We are to the Father within us, and the Lord within us. So we've been sent to bring in the kingdom, to subject every other force under the lordship of Jesus Christ. That right there is like drawing a line in the sand and saying, we are the mighty warriors of God. We are the army of Joel, because this isn't happening. The enemy's not laying down and saying, well, here, you can have, I give up. It doesn't, it doesn't happen that way. And that's why we are moving progressively more and more into the true authority of the kingdom. And we've seen measures of that in the day of the church age, when people moved in gifts and they would lay on hands and, all kinds of things would happen. Or back in the 50s, when you had the holy rollers, so many different movements of God that had a certain quality or gift from God, and they manifested that. But it was always the partial. It was always, just a precursor of something greater that was to come. And that which is greater is what is happening now in the manifestation of the sons of God. And we're waking up, and we're pushing that envelope as hard as we can to come alive even more deeply. Because all change happens when you hear him and when you see him. So none of this is news, but it's comprehending it on a deeper level. It doesn't happen when you hear it with your mind. It happens when the Lord reveals it to your spirit and you see it. No one can take it away, because not only have you seen it, but it has touched you. The Lord has touched you and changed you. One more step into his likeness. And there is a point in all of this where the breakthrough that we're looking for is going to be complete. In fact, that was a word that came many years ago. It's not going to be, resurrection life is not going to happen because all of a sudden, we wake up one morning and the Lord just meets us. It's a progressive thing that's unfolding. But you hit a point where the breakthrough that we seek can happen in an instant. Like the word says, in a twinkling of an eye. And that's what we're contending for. The very same energy that came from the Father to the Lord is the very same energy, as the word says, that is focused towards us. So there are a number of things happening to us in this process right now. The left-handed confirmation is all of the devil power that is being released into the earth. But we've seen this coming. And, it will become even more. But it has nothing to do with the people. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, because it's a spirit world that is being cast down, has been cast down, and is being cast down. That's going to continue. And, but how's it go in the book of Daniel? I was looking at that earlier. It's those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Many of those who sleep in the dust will awake, some to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. We're in that time of the coexistence of dark and light, the rising of darkness in the earth is moving so much more rapidly, and there's really no way to prepare for what is coming, as far as trying to wrap your head around it, because it isn't going to make any sense anyway. But we're in a time of the revealing of the manifestation of the sons of God. The word says your lives are hidden, but when he's revealed, so you will be revealed. It's a very deeply mystical teaching, because our lives have been hidden. I mean, the enemy hasn't really yet grasped the depth of what God is unfolding right now in the release of the sons of God. It's been interesting to have had an occasion to be pulled into the outer perimeter of some of these meetings that are going on in the spirit with the satanic hosts, which I've been there, but yet my presence was not discerned, and because we've been to a degree hidden. And you would see them laying out their plans. But here again, but the sons have been hidden. And there's a time when the manifesting of the sons is going to come in conjunction with the awareness of the spirit world. The word says that, how's it go? You will know as you have been known. So, we have been known more energetically than identifying the persona. And everything that's happening right now is an expansion of God's energy as it begins to fill the earth. But it's not God, the separate entity, that is filling the earth. It's God within the sons that are beginning to fill the earth. And that's something that we need to really see and understand. The Lord has given us the capability of creating. We can create the positive, we can create the negative. And the difficulty with coming into greater sight, or the ability to perceive and know, has to do with your ability to create the positive or to create the negative. And time again, we can easily get pulled into creating the negative and not even realizing that we're doing that. Because we might be trying to put our finger on something that we are, that is plaguing us, that we're aware of, but if we don't watch it, all of a sudden we're creating this negative energy, and so we've had to kind of be very careful. It's one thing to see, it's another thing to have faith for the positive of what God is, and I'm talking about what we see in people's lives, as they come by and intersect with our path for a moment. And so we have to be very careful that we're creating the positive. Because what's unfolding in the earth right now is such an escalation of darkness. And we saw this about three years ago, roughly. It might be 4 now, with this feast coming up, that there was going to be an infusion of darkness into the earth on such a level that everyone in the earth is going to be affected. They're going to be affected by the flow of darkness going into the earth. And in the last 4 years, we have seen some pretty wild stuff that's happening on a natural plane, as anger and hatred begins to just fill the hearts of people, and it's only going to continue to evolve. It's just part and parcel of what is happening during this timeline. But the flip side is that I was thinking about the word, create daybreak. Because we have this ability to bring in the kingdom. And we do that by what we voice, by how we see, just the positioning of our energy before God. We can bring in the positive, or we can create the negative. And there is enough on the negative side that is being created right now in the earth, both in the rhetoric of people, governments and politicians, as well as the whole realm of music. There are a number of venues that are being used right now to create a wave or frequency of energy that is beginning to fill the earth. And that talks about it in the New Testament, how the violence, is the violence that's coming forth in the earth. And we're walking in that timeline right now with this level of hostility that is beginning to fill the earth. But what we're pushing to do, by virtue of just what we are, whether we said anything or not, is really secondary, because we are the hidden X factor of what God is doing. The Word talks about this new creation that God is doing, something that hasn't been here before, something that was really never a part of this age. When it says be not a part of this age, it's a lot more than just stepping away from old order church. It's a lot more than letting go of your paradigm of how you have thought, having sojourned in the soul and the humanity for all of your life. And then all of a sudden God pulls you up and says, you know what? You're not part of humanity. You're part of something special that I've been creating. And that's why you have been sent. And that's what we talked about before you went. You're going to be part of this company of sons that the earth has not seen before. Certainly the spirit world has not seen it. And, and so we have been going through this process of travail and groaning that we haven't really understood. We are now, but I can't say that we've always understood just what it is that we're in the midst of going through. How do you look at what you go through in a day or a month and say, oh, that was just travail, I'm groaning right now. You're what? I'm groaning. But we're going through this process of transformation. And the Father is very intent on bringing us through this time of change. And, I've seen it coming. In fact, I know that resurrection life, it's already here. It's already here, and most likely all of us have it. But we don't know it. It's a staggering thing to make such an audacious statement. But we're in the midst of being unwrapped. We're in the midst of coming alive. Really coming alive. Really coming alive. Until you literally become a fully manifested child of light. How does the word go? Our Father is the Father of lights. We are the children of light. The word is so much deeper than we understand. We are so much more than we comprehend. Because we see ourselves with this flesh and this, this humanity. But this is not who we are. This has never been who we are. You remember, I think probably most of you have heard the story of the three, I think it was three, old, I wouldn't call them children, they were probably in their 20s, that came and visited with Ann and I about 5 years ago. And they showed up when we were just in the midst of retiring. And they said, we had to come and see you. And I didn't know what they were speaking of, so I said, so what is this? And she says, we come from a different world, one of many in the Father's kingdom, and we've talked about that. In my Father's house are many, many mansions, many dwelling places, many worlds, so much more than we comprehend. And they said, our world is governed and our world is all about the light. Are those that have oversight, are those that shine the greatest, that have the greatest light. And so they emit light. Everything about this world was light. And they said they had been watching for a number of years, and they saw this light from a distant area, and so they had been seeking to find this light. And it happened to be us, but I'm sure there's others. But it was something that we needed to know, most likely. And so we talked about the light, and they talked about, what they had been seeking. And so there was a time of impartation. I'm not sure what ever happened with them. We haven't seen them since. But everything had to do with the manifesting of the light of God. And that's what their whole life was about. And I know that for us, for the sons of God, we're coming into a state of being completely possessed by the Father. And that's how the word goes. I'm looking for sons and daughters whom I will possess, and I will be a father to them, and they will be sons and daughters to me. No surprise, except all of a sudden we're putting legs to something that otherwise was theory. And none of us really like theory. Theory's okay for the day of theory, but this isn't the day of theory. This is the day of reality. This is the day of God incarnate, God in man, the total takeover of God, the suddenly coming to his temple and taking up his abode. And we know that we are his temple. So, if we've read the word much, we know these things. They all are logical. It makes sense. We get it. But what is remarkable and astounding and is so important that we get out of the mind on a deeper level and understand that the way we see is not these eyeballs and ears. The way that we see is with our spirit and the eyes of our spirit. And you have a spirit, you have a soul, you have a body. Most people don't know that they have a spirit, much less know their spirit. And, some of these things can kind of blow your fuse when you start wrapping your head around it and you realize, I'm not what I appear to be. And not only that, I seem to be living in a couple of worlds at the same time, maybe more. And on top of that, I seem to be kind of a multidimensional being. You know what, Lord? I think I don't know what I am. Or maybe I haven't realized what you've become within me. And that as a child of light, I am following the same path as the Lord Jesus Christ. And I am becoming. It's time. I said the other day that we've talked about the parousia of the Lord. Probably most of you know about the parousia, the coming of the Lord in this timeline. I used to always look at it years ago that the parousia was the time of his presence. That's probably what you would define it, the time of his presence. And then my thinking would always be the time of his presence outside of me. And then I realized, no, it's not outside of me, it's in me. I am the parousia. You are the parousia. Really? Yes. You are the parousia of God in the earth. And so we're in and have been in an increased drive of intercession, of travail, of groaning, to get into this next level. And I think a lot of what the Lord has done in these words in the books was to present a whole different way of looking at everything, and to begin to let go of our ideas, because we've had ideas of what we think is possible and what we don't think is possible. And it's confirmed by the fact that if we don't think it's possible, well, it's just not happening. And it was a while back when the Lord appeared and said, okay, do you have resurrection life? It is so close to you that it's right underneath your skin. Well, that was a good visual. So, well, Lord, if I kind of cut my skin and pull it back, what am I going to find? Well, obviously, I didn't ask that of him, but I was just randomly thinking how close everything is. Like I said the other day, we're so much deeper and into the kingdom than we know. And that, if it really hits you, it's hard to shake it. Not that you won't want to shake it, but it's hard to shake it because you realize it's right here. Our transformation is right here. The change we seek, it's right here. Like the Lord has said, the change you seek, you already have. You just don't know that you have it. So therefore, it's elusive. But you have it. And so my response, okay, Lord, I believe. Now, can you help us with this slight little transition between what I see and what you've said? And I believe that he is doing that. But all of it is internal. We're not looking for an external, God in the clouds. We're looking for something that really comes alive within us. And we see. And in seeing, we know. And in knowing, we then can grab the change. Because if you see /know, then you change. Someone can't say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I see that. Well, if you really did, then you would have changed. So that's not to put a damper on our faith or where we're at, because we are changing. We are seeing more and more deeply. And oftentimes we're the last one to recognize who we are and the fact that we've changed. I remember being in an elders meeting back in 1980, something like that. And there were 4 or 5 of us that were shepherding a church. And a young man came down from a different church to be involved for a short season. And, so we were chatting, we were, just kind of relaxed and whatnot. And he looked at me, he says, I don't get it. And I didn't know him that well. I just said, what don't you get? He says, I don't get why you don't see who you are. And really, I did not. I had no clue. But that stuck with me. I thought, well, he sees something I don't see. And that's been the case for all of us. People see the Christ. They recognize what's happening, but we're slow at times because our mind is processing through its paradigms. And it's not an easy thing, to shift your paradigm. It's like I explained to it in a word a while back, it's like driving down the freeway. And the freeway gets really backed up with traffic, and you're stuck on the freeway and you can't go anywhere. And then the Lord shows up and picks you up and puts you on another freeway. And it's clear. And then you can take right off. And I equated that to shifting the tracks within your own consciousness. Okay, Lord, okay, my son, you've gone as far as you can go on the I-25. So I'm going to move you over to the I-10, and this will be the next chapter for you. So, but as we stand here today, as we go through our day, we are creating, whether we say anything or not, we are creating by virtue of the light that we have become. We are the light in the earth, and the more we come to a place of recognizing that truth, the greater it will manifest. Because we have the ability, which is not necessarily great, to hold back what God's been doing. Tie the Lord's hands. He says, okay, this is who you are, this is what you are, but you're tying my hands because you haven't believed it. And our response is, Lord, help us. We want to believe it more fully. We want to let go of the mind and all of its archaic, perceptions, and reach into this new day of the kingdom. Someone's got to do it. Lord, it just happens to be that you've chosen us and called us as a people to break through, to break the tape, to break through into resurrection life. And one of the words that came, probably 40 years ago, maybe more, was that there will be breakthroughs into resurrection life during this timeline that we're in now, while the world as we know it continues in their path of destruction and death, and decay and passing away. But simultaneous to that, there will be those who are breaking through and walking into resurrection life. And when that word came, it wasn't a small thing like, well, there'll be 5 or 10 people or 20 people moving into this while the world as a whole. No, it was thousands upon thousands will break into this. And God has prepared at different levels for the breakthrough. But there has to be the initial spearheaded breakthrough which has to happen. And that's what we're contending for right now. And that's where we are right now. And I think, the Lord just keep bringing the light, turning the light on greater and greater, that we begin to really see and recognize what we are and how far we've come. And everyone has their own set of challenges that you have to go through in almost a programmed unbelief of yourself. And you've got to let that go because that is a roadblock. We cannot see ourselves as limited. We cannot see ourselves as second-class citizens. There's only one way we can see ourselves, and that is as the Lord sees us. But we are bringing in the light. There's a lot of death and destruction and darkness. But there is a nucleus of people that God is raising up that are creating this new day. The light that is shattering the darkness, that is creating a new way for people to enter into this change of life. Like we've said before, we're writing the last chapters. We're writing the book because there is no book, there is no map that says how we walk this out. What you're going to face, how it's going to be done. We just know We're writing it and we're doing it. And this is the time now for it to be completed. And we are heralding a new age. And that new age is right here. As much as we see the death and destruction of darkness that is ushering in this, crazy time of darkness and evil that is covering the earth, at the same time, you've got a day of light that is dawning over the face of the earth. I think that goes back into the book of Joel, the prophecy in Joel. So I think that's all we want to talk about this evening. It's been probably about 45 minutes. So we will sign off, and I'm sure the audio will be available shortly. We'll see what we do with the video. And I don't know exactly what we will do, but we'll let you know. And so I think we'll keep it simple this evening. And if anyone has a question, certainly reach out and email us. We'll try and do another Zoom call where we could maybe open the platform up to talk a bit and field some questions. So Ann and I send our love and blessings, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Recording.